The 7th round of the GT1 World Championship saw the teams take to the Moscow Raceway. Stefano Telli led the wet race at the start, but he ran wide at the first corner, allowing Markus Winkelhock to slither up the inside and move into the lead. Soon after, the McLaren was up into second place, and the Ferraris, after a poor qualifying race, were starting to fight their way through the field. The two Audis were battling each other for supremacy, but again it was the number 3 Ferrari that was on a charge, making up more positions on this occasion, going past the early race leader Stefano Telli and the qualifying race winner from earlier on. There was also an intense inter-team battle at Hexis McLaren. Alvaro Parent sliding past Fred Makovicky up the inside to move past his teammate and up into second place and set his sights on the leader. He passed the leader in the end, going up the hill, getting to the inside of Markus Winkelhock, outbraking him and taking the lead of the race for Hexis. At the pit stops, Fred Makovicky came in to hand over to Stef Dusseldorp, clouting the pit lane marker as he did so, and that would take the McLarens back out in second place. The two Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes were battling hard, Thomas Jaeger and Markus Winkelhock going side by side through the final corner, but their battling ultimately allowed the number 3 Ferrari through. But then there was a change for the lead. Parent had handed over to de Moustier, and Stef Dusseldorp forced his way past the number 2 Hexis McLaren and into the lead of the race. Francesco Castellacci was now challenging Nicky Pastorelli in the Mercedes, getting up the inside on the run down into the left-hander at turn 12. Then Philippe Salaquada was right up behind Gregoire de Moustier, sent it up the inside into turn 5. There was contact between the two of them, and de Moustier was sent spinning. Only a few moments later, and Salaquada sent Nicky Pastorelli spinning as well. Both Ferraris receiving penalties, but it was the race win for Fred Makovicky and Stef Dusseldorp after a brilliant drive in the rain in Moscow. The 8th round of the championship takes place at the Nürburgring, with a number of German brands in contention. They may be run by the Belgian WRT team, but Audi will be keen to impress on home soil. They returned to form somewhat last time out in Moscow Raceway after taking the win in the qualifying race thanks to Stefano Telli and Laurens Vanthoor. And Ortelli is confident a similar performance may be on the cards here.
Russian was good to be back on the first position. Even if it was the start of the race, it was a good one. This is a good track for the Audi. Altogether, I think we are looking to make some podium again. The competition is very high. We can still do well in the championship in terms of team championship. So all the points will count, and both cars will be chasing maximum points as possible.
BMW have a very close association with the Nürburgring, and Michael Bartels and Jelmer Berman come into this weekend still leading the Drivers' World Championship. Michael Bartels is confident that he can get the upper hand on his fellow German rivals.
Well, I think it will be a good German fight on one of the most famous tracks in the world, of course in Germany. It's not only a German driver battle, it's also a German brand battle, and I hope we are in the end in front of them.
The Ferrari 458 has shown good pace this season, but AF Corsa have been unable to quite turn it into results. A lot of that has been down to conditions. Colder conditions like we saw in Moscow seem to help the Ferrari gain pace, and with another chilly weekend in prospect here at the Nürburgring, Tony Verlander is confident they can be battling towards the front again.
We are definitely there with the others. If we are fast enough to battle for the win, I really don't know now, but I'm confident that we will have a positive weekend.
2010 French GT champion Laurent Groppi will be driving the Ford GT this weekend alongside Benjamin Lariche. Because of the long straights, Benjamin Lariche feels that it'll play into the hands of the Ford GT, and after experiencing the circuit last year in Formula 2, he's confident the team can show some decent pace this weekend.
I raced here last year in F2, so I'm happy to be in this historical track, so I'm very happy to be here. We had a good top speed on Moscow, so I think we will be good here, I think.
Lamborghini this weekend will have one car driven by Peter Cox and Stefan Racina, and the second by Mike Parisi and Jeroen Bleekemolen. Bleekemolen has a wealth of single-seater and GT racing experience, so expect the Dutchman to be strong this weekend. And his partner Mike Parisi has already proven his worth in GT1 this year and is looking forward to racing this weekend with the German Reiter Engineering team.
I am very happy to come back with the Reiter team in Germany on the Nürburgring. So it's a very good experience. Jewen is very fast, and I think we can be a very good pair, a strong pair for this weekend. So we cross fingers.
It was a great weekend for McLaren in Moscow, with the Hexis racing team completing a 1-2 finish in the championship race. Fred Makovicky and Stef Dusseldorp needed that to pull themselves back into title contention, a position that they're very much in going into this weekend. And Dusseldorp thinks a shot at the title is very much a possibility.
Yeah, I think we're going to do well. I haven't got a lot of experience in GTs on this track, but I'm pretty confident we'll fight for the victory again. And we hope we score more points than Bartels and Burman, and close the gap a little bit to make it a nice finish in Donington.
Mercedes-Benz are another German brand still in with a chance of winning the driver's title. They're currently leading the team's championship, and Markus Winkelhock has a great amount of experience here at the Nürburgring, including leading a race in Formula 1 back in a rain-affected 2007 European Grand Prix, and he's hoping to put that experience to the test.
I think it's getting now really close for the championship. Mark and me, we are really giving everything. For us it's really important to score as many points as possible, but I don't put any pressure on myself. I just drive like always, and then I hope that it ends up good.
Good morning everybody and welcome to the Nürburgring, a very misty, foggy, cloudy Nürburgring for qualifying ahead of the 8th round of the FIA GT1 World Championship. It's the penultimate round of the championship as well, so we're getting very close to crunch time in this 2012 season. My name is Jack Nichols. I'm up here in the commentary box overlooking the start-finish straight. Hayley Coxon is down with us in the pit lane this weekend on what is a very chilly weekend. I don't envy her one bit running around down there in the cold. Only 8 degrees the air temperature, and so as a result it's going to be a different kind of scenario to one we've seen in the last few races. Michael Bartels and Jelmer Berman then lead the Drivers' Championship coming into this weekend, 6 points clear of Mark Basseng and Markus Winkelhock. Stef Dusseldorp and Fred Makovicky still the dark horses in with a shot of the title. Ortelli and Van Thor still can technically do well. Al Inkel leading the team's championship. They've got a fairly comfortable lead now over Vita for One Racing Team, so it's looking more and more like Al Inkel will seal the team's championship. But the battle between Vita for One, Belgian Audi Club and Hexis Racing is going to be a very interesting one in these final 2 rounds of the season. So you can see the cars on circuit. That's for the Blancpain Endurance Series race that we will be having later on tomorrow, in fact, and that will be interesting to see. But the next cars out on circuit will be the GT1 teams for their World Championship qualifying session, and you can see some of the Al Inkel Mercedes being shown out in being pushed out into the pit lane to get ready. So the fog falls here at the Nürburgring, and as I say, it's going to be a very interesting qualifying session because the colder conditions should suit cars like the Ferraris. We saw the Al Inkel Mercedes being pushed into the pit lane. Let's chat to the team boss there, Mark Basseng.
Mark, coming here to the German round, still leading the championship. How do you feel you're going to do here this weekend?
Like always, really difficult to predict it. It is too cold for our car. We have just 6 degrees air temperature and asphalt temperature. I mean, it is my track, or our track. I mean, we are really used to it, Marcus and me, and the team, but we will see. After the qualifying, we know more.
Thank you.
Yeah, the hotter conditions tend to suit the Mercedes because they are fairly careful on their tyres, but then cars like the Ferrari 458 that we saw perform so strongly in Moscow because of the cooler conditions will be absolutely relishing these conditions this morning. So as far as the championship is concerned then, 6 points separate Michael Bartels and Jelmer Berman, and you get 8 points for winning the winning the qualifying race and 25 for winning the championship race. So this weekend alone there's 33 points up for grabs. So the championship could really swing either way, and then in 1 week's time we're at Donington Park for the season finale of the FIA GT1 World Championship, and that's when naturally it'll all be decided. It could technically be decided this weekend if Bartels and Berman have a very good weekend and Basseng and Winkelhock have an awful weekend, but I can't really see that happening. We will of course keep you up to date on that as things progress, but if it is going to be decided, it'll be tomorrow in the championship race. But like I say, a fairly slim chance of that happening in my personal opinion, because the Mercedes, as you can see there with the Mercedes-Benz grandstand, a large presence. It's a real battle of the German brands here. BMW occupying kind of the top end of the start-finish straight with the BMW Tower, the BMW Bridge over the start-finish straight, and there is the BMW Vita4One racing team. But then down at the first corner, you've got the Mercedes-Benz grandstand, where they have all their hospitality for the Formula One Grand Prix that are held here biannually now, aren't they? So it's going to be a real good battle between those two. We've also, of course, got the German brand of Audi, even though they are being run by the Belgian WRT team. We're going to have a bit of a delay before qualifying gets underway, unfortunately. Just towards the end of that Blancpain Endurance Series session, there was a crash down at the chicane, so we may have a few minutes of delay, which means we get to chat to some drivers, and Haley Coxon's found Nicky Melnoff.
Nicky, the battle of the German teams here continues. How do you feel the BMW is going to stand up against the Mercedes?
Really difficult. By judging the results from last year, from last weekend, from the ADAC, the Mercedes is very strong, and we are in the most horrible conditions that we can have for the BMW. As we've seen in Moscow, the really low temperatures is not suiting our car. We're not getting any temperature into the tires. We're struggling a lot, but Jelma put out a fantastic time yesterday, so somehow it is possible. I'm struggling a little bit, so it will be difficult for us to get into Q3, but we're gonna really push hard for the championship to support the number 18 car, and yeah, it's like the last two races, so maximum attack and maximum points hopefully for the weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, the tyre issues really hurting BMW last time out in Moscow. If you remember the second Slovakian race we had in August, where we had very, very hot conditions, the BMWs absolutely blitzed the field because the hotter conditions really suit the car, whereas the chilly conditions in Moscow saw our championship leaders pick up a 10th place and a 7th place in the qualifying and championship races respectively. There you can see the rather poorly looking BMW Z4 being towed from the gravel trap. The driver is out, and which is great news. You can see Ollie, the race director, down there just having a look around to see what kind of damage has been done. I didn't see there's two of them have gone up, I see. So there's the car 70. These are both from the Blancpain Endurance Series. As I say, I didn't actually see the incident, but needless to say, they've both gone off. Both drivers are out of the cars, I believe, which is excellent news. There's Benjamin Lariche in the car this weekend. On the left-hand side there, you'll see Laurent Groppi. He's going to be his teammate this weekend. That's Laurent just walking away. He's got plenty of GT racing experience and single-seater experience as well. The 2010 French GT champion is Laurent Groppi, so he certainly knows his way around a GT car. And Benjamin Lariche, as he said in the pre-show interviews, raced here in Formula 2 last season, so he knows the circuit fairly well. Just going back to that BMW story about them struggling in the cold conditions, it was 15 degrees yesterday for free practice 2, and Jelma Berman managed to set the fastest lap time that we've seen so far this weekend, a 1 minute 56.068. So either Berman did something magical, or 15 degrees is kind of the cutoff point, because it was colder than that in Moscow. I think in Moscow the races were held in about 8 or 9 degrees air temperature. So perhaps once it gets over about 14, 15 degrees, we should be all right. So now let's hear from another new driver this weekend, a veteran of GT racing and single-seater racing, Jeroen Bleekemolen.
Jeroen, welcome to the World Championship. How are you feeling stepping into Lamborghini with Mike?
Yeah, great. It's a great opportunity to step into the championship. It's my first time. I did FIA GT a long time ago, but I think it's about 10 or 12 years ago. So great to be back, and we'll see what it's like.
Thank you.
Yep, Jeroen Bleekemolen competed in FIA GT for a number of years, had his biggest success in 2001, finishing runner-up that year, sharing a Viper it was, with Mike Hazemans, and now he's going to be with another Mike in FIA GT, and that's Mike Parisi, the Frenchman you can see there. It's great to have him back in the championship after he competed in some of the earlier rounds, taking a win at Zolder, you may remember, but now he's back in the Lamborghini with Jeroen Bleekemolen, just saving his helmet there as the cars get pushed out into the pit lane. So they're going to be a strong pairing, and here will be Peter Cox and Stefan Racina. They'll be in the number 25 car. There you can see the number 24 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini Gallardo. V10 engine in that car, one of the most powerful on the grid, and its low centre of gravity really makes it handle like a cart, the engineers say. 535 brake horsepower coming from that V10 engine, and it's a very impressive piece of machinery, as all the cars are. Let's hear from the man who's going to be driving that car alongside Peter Cox, Stefan Racina.
Stefan, here we are at the famous Nürburgring. How difficult has it been for you to set up here this weekend?
Well, it's not so easy because for me this is the first time with Lambo here. Before I drove here with Porsche. But overall, yeah, we will see today how it will go. It seems that everything is really close, so it's going to be a tough qualifying, I think.
How have you found the Lamborghini so far around this track?
Well, I think that the pace, what we have shown yesterday, is a bit better than what we had in Slovakia. But, you know, yesterday it was only a practice. Today is the important day.
Thank you.
Peter Cox, Stefan Racina's teammate, managed to pick up a 4th position in yesterday's free practice 2. Only half a second or so off the pace of Yama Berman, so that was a decent effort from Peter Cox, who's also going to be driving in Blancpain later today. He tweeted this morning that he's going to be driving 2 out of the 3 Reiter Engineering cars that they've got here today. So it's going to be a busy weekend for him. And there you can see the conditions we've got here over this beautiful part of Germany. Still the clear-up operation going on. As you can see, trying to find a piece of that BMW left to attach anything to. Looks like is proving the challenge. So AF Corsa Ferrari should be looking forward to these cold conditions. Let's hear from their driver Francesco Castellacci.
Francesco, the Ferrari's ready to go out, but the track's not quite ready. How are you feeling about going out today?
No, we're feeling good. I think Enzo is doing, since he's doing also the Blancpain race, and he's doing a good job, and the free practice was good for him before, so I think we were looking for a good race. And the qualifying, of course, is important, and I will do Q2, and I think the Ferrari handles good in this type of circuit and in this type of temperature especially.
And what's your main aim for the weekend?
Of course, same, the podium as always. We would like to reach our first podium of the season. We were close in Moscow, but then we had a penalty. But we'll see. For sure, we can do it.
Thank you.
Francesco Castellacci coming together with one of the Mercedes, Nicky Pastorelli, wasn't it, in Moscow, which is the penalty he was talking about. Here's a look at that 458. Beautiful looking car, and a powerful car as well, with its F142 engine producing 550 brake horsepower. One of the best looking cars out there, there's no doubt about that, and so far it's had the pace this year. Tony Villander has piloted it to 2 pole positions in the qualifying sessions, but they just haven't been able to pull it all together during a race. Tony Villander and Felipe Talaquada down in 7th position with only 1 podium so far this year, and that was back in the rain-affected race at Zolder, all the way back in April. So the Belgian Audi WRT team are going to be looking for a good result this weekend. Let's hear from Oliver Jarvis.
Ollie, how are you feeling after the last round? You must be feeling confident stepping out in the Audi here.
Yeah, we had a good last round, 2 podiums, but it's a different track here. From testing, we've seen we're struggling a little bit, but that's where we expect it to be. It's very cold this morning, so I think one of the big problems is going to get tyre temperature. But you know, we're confident. Hopefully, we can do a good job and make it into Q3.
What about being here at this fantastic Nürburgring?
It's an amazing place. You got to love it, especially here with the Nordschleife. But it's always cold whenever I'm here, so I'm hoping the weather will warm up later today and also be a little bit better for tomorrow.
Thank you.
It is great to be in Germany, to be at the Nürburgring with the GT1 World Championship. And here's a look at that Audi R8. That's the 33 car that Jarvis will be driving alongside Frank Stippler. It's another V10 engine, 560 brake horsepower coming from this one. They tend to be reasonable in a straight line to the Audis, and in its matte black it's certainly very distinctive out there. Such a great start to the season they had. Stefano Telli and Laurens Vanthoor winning the qualifying race and the championship race in Nogaro back in the first weekend in April. And from then on we really thought they were going to be championship contenders, but it just didn't quite work out for them, did it? Back on form though last time in Moscow, winning the qualifying race and then having a 4th place in the championship race. A break in the clouds over there, you can see, but the air temperature has actually dropped a little bit. We're down to 7.7 degrees, so it's dropped in the last few minutes. The fans in the grandstands wrapping up warm. The estimated start of qualifying is being given at 20 past 10. Hopefully now that they've cleared that BMW, we may be able to bring that forward just a little bit, because all the teams are ready down in the pit lane. We're certainly ready. The marshals will be ready after they've had a little break. And you can see that we'll be using the second configuration of the chicane here. So if you watch the Formula 1 races, they will be using that very tight first chicane where you see all the excellent super slow-mos, but we'll be using the faster left-right flick up the top of the hill, where the drivers will be approaching at probably around 250, 260 kilometers per hour. There's the number 10 Ford GT with Laurent Groppi about to climb aboard. He's been driver coaching Benjamin Lariche for the past couple of years, and here's a look at that Ford, a V8 supercharged engine. Again, 550 brake horsepower produced by that car. It really has got the grunt in the straight line, which is what Benjamin was telling me will be good for them this weekend, because there's a couple of long straights here at the Nürburgring. And as I say, Laurent Groppi, his teammate this weekend, they wanted to race together in Portimao, but things didn't quite come off for one reason or another. But finally they get to race together in a car this weekend. Good friends, and Laurent Groppi, as I say, acting as Benjamin Lariche's driver coach around the Formula 2 paddock last year. So they're wheeling the number 17 car back into the pit lane for a little bit, maybe just to keep it a bit warmer than having it out in the cold. But the BMW Z4 is an impressive piece of kit, as you'd imagine, and as I said about all these GT1 cars, it really is a stunning field we have out there. V8 engine, 515 horsepower though. You'll notice that that is significantly lower than the other kind of cars we've looked at, and as a result the BMW isn't quite as strong in a straight line, which may hurt it around this Nürburgring circuit. But at its home circuit, you'd think it would be looking pretty strong, and they'd have the setup just about nailed. And as we saw in free practice 2, Yalma Berman setting the fastest time of anyone with a 56.068. So we've got to fix the guardrail. That's the problem. Down. Oh, there we go. A nice bit of. There's some German engineering for you, and obviously the Armco barrier has taken quite a big hit down there, and so I can't quite make out where that is. So that's going to be on the left-hand side, isn't it, as we pan back to the chicane? So quite exactly how one of the cars ended up there, I don't know, but the guardrail is being fixed as we speak, which is why we have the delay. I can't tell if that's a complete split in the guardrail in the Armco barrier, but whether that's just one of the access points or one of the marshals. But as we had in Slovakia Ring last time, we have got a bit of a delay whilst we fix the barrier. So there you can see the first sector of the circuit, which ends on the run down into the hairpin at turn 8, and then if you see up at sector 3, you've got the final corner there, and then you've got the quick left-right. That's where that accident was, right towards the end of the lap. You can see from the run from turn 12 all the way to turn 14, which is halfway through sector 2, that's where you've got a big long straight. Overtaking opportunities down into the hairpin on the left-hand side of the track there at turn 8, and also down into turn 1, the very, very tight first corner that really closes in. And there you can see that kink is turn 13, and then up into turn 14 and 15, which is the chicane. Let's hear from the team manager of Hexus McLaren. Philippe Dumas is with Haley.
Philippe, the team is still involved in a healthy fight for the championship so far this season. How do you feel you're going to do this weekend?
It should be good to beat the German in this place with an English car and a French team. But no, I'm quite confident. We have now the reliability, finger crossed. So, but we will fight for the championship. The first goal is to win the driver championship. We have a good chance, and it's really good to have Donington next week near McLaren GT. So I'm confident. Yeah.
Realistically, though, how do you feel the McLaren is going to be able to stand up against the almighty Mercedes and the BMW?
I think we have a good car now, quite consistent. It's a little bit difficult to warm up the front tires, but we have definitely a good car, and as you can see yesterday, the lap time are really close between everybody. So everything is important. So the pit stop as usual, and no, it will be very close and probably a good race this afternoon and tomorrow.
And it's a very familiar situation for you compared to last year, because you were fighting for the championship towards the end of the year also.
We are in this position since 2008, I think. So, and now it's really good for us. It's really good, and to be honest, we have no pressure. I think Vita for one, and Olink will have more pressure than us.
Great.
So,
thank you, Philippe.
Yeah.
Some mind games there from Philippe Dumas, saying that Alinco and Vita for one have more pressure than the Hexis team. And that's probably true, really, because this was always going to be a development year for the McLaren. Fresh out of the box at the start of this year, and they've had the teething troubles earlier on. But the fact that they've managed to turn it into a championship competing car is all credit to the French Hexis racing team. There you can see the McLaren GT MP412C 3.8 litre V8 engine. Again, only producing 500 brake horsepower, but it's more aerodynamically efficient than the BMW Z4, which means it doesn't lose out quite as much in a straight line. And that McLaren, in the hands of Fred Makovicky and Steph Dusseldorp, is only 17 points off the lead of the championship. So with 33 up for grabs, it's going to be a very, very interesting battle at the end of this season. There you can see the main pit building. And, well, we mentioned Fred Makovicky. He and Steph Dusseldorp challenging for the championship. Fred's with Haley.
Fred, slight delay. How is that affecting your mindset getting ready going out into qualifying?
It's with the delay, it's like this. It's the same for everybody. Now just we must to be ready for the free qualify. I hope so. In this condition we are quick and fast, and depend of the warm up of the tire. I hope so. We took the good decision, and we are confident of this.
Thank you.
Fred Makovicky second quickest in free practice yesterday afternoon. 1 minute 56.239. Second fastest lap time of the weekend, with Alvaro Parent behind him in third. So I think McLaren are going to have a strong weekend here, you know. There you can see the look down the pit lane, a very busy pit lane, because the GT3 European Championship will also be out in qualifying for this as well in the first two sessions anyway. Then we'll just have a pole position shootout for FIA GT1 as the mist continues to come down. Here's a look at the championship then. So we've got 6 points between the BMW and the Mercedes pairs, with Steph Dusseldorp and Fred Makovicky only 11 points behind Basseng and Winkelhock. So they are very much in the fight. As I say, Ortelli and Vanthor not completely out of it. They've still got a slim chance, as have Jaeger and Pastorelli, but they are very, very, very dark horses at the present time, considering that you'd expect some of those cars in front of them to pick up some points at some point during this weekend. So it could be at the end of this weekend we just have 3 teams remaining in the fight. Vita Vaughan can overtake Alinkel if they have a mesmerising end to the season. Same can be said of Belgian Audi Club, but Alinkel have been so consistent so far this season that it's really difficult to envisage that happening. They haven't had a DNF all season, and both cars have finished in the points in every single race, which has been very, very impressive indeed. In fact, the worst was the first meeting at the Slovakia ring, where the 37 car of Jaeger and Pastorelli finished in 10th position. So let's hear now from the new driver at Ford GT, Laurent Groppi. He's with Haley Coxon.
it's certainly good to have you part of the World Championship. It must feel special to be racing at the ring with one of your good friends.
Yes, it's a good thing to be there, especially with Benjamin in the Ford GT, and I hope we will have a strong weekend.
And have you found the Ford GT around the track so far?
Yes, it's similar to the Saline. I know the Saline GT well, and I hope we will be fast today.
Thank you.
So Laurent Groppi getting prepared. He is going to be taking the second session of qualifying. There you can see the Armco being repaired. They've got all the tools they need down there. If you're going to damage some Armco, do it in Germany, because that's quite a hefty impact they've had. And here's a look at what happened then. The two cars, oh, they're going to come together, aren't they? Oh, and spear off into the Armco barriers at the side. That's a big one. The photographer behind there taking a nice dive as well to get out of the way. But that was just a bit of an unfortunate incident. But the Germans repairing that Armco barrier as quickly as is possible. And I guess they're used to it, really, with the Nordschleife just not even around the corner. I can see it out of the commentary box, some of the regular road cars cruising around there. They must get a lot of Armco damage, I'd imagine, around the Nordschleife, with some Billies who are a bit too optimistic, and so they probably have all the tools they need on hand. As you can see, just that last little segment of Armco barrier to be repaired, and then we should get underway. But it certainly looks like they know what they're doing. A similar situation to the GT3 qualifying in Zandvoort last year, where we had, well, that was a long break. That was about an hour break whilst they rebuilt the Armco barrier, but this shouldn't be too bad. There you can see the Nordschleife on this left-hand side. There's some of the cars. You can just turn up with your own car and have a little drive round. Some insurance policies, my insurance policy especially, specifies you cannot take it on track days or the Nordschleife. So it's very, very specific as well. And so this Armco barrier continues to be rebuilt. Here's another look at the shunt, and you'll see the photographer diving for cover. He's absolutely fine, but there he goes. And quick reactions from him to get out of the way. That's a fairly unusual place to have a shunt. Was it Fernando Alonso and David Coulthard came together there a few years ago? Coulthard accused Alonso of brake testing him, had to swerve to the right-hand side and ended up in the gravel. Didn't hit anything though, did he? Back in, that must have been, what, 2005, something like that would be my prediction. There's the 37 car. Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli at the wheel of that one. They are technically out of title, technically still in title contention, but you'd imagine with their teammates in a full-on battle for the title, it'll all be about the 38 car this weekend. 500 brake horsepower from the Mercedes V8 engine. They prefer to have hotter conditions this weekend in their SLS, but it is what it is, and they've got to try and deal with these cooler conditions and find a way of bringing their tyres up to temperature a little bit quicker. But that Mercedes SLS has performed very strongly in other GT series that have come here over the past few weeks. And as a result, expect Basseng and Winkelhock to be fairly strong. Basseng and Winkelhock were second quickest in free practice 1, but then they were 11th quickest in free practice 2. So whether they were just running different strategies, different setups, because they tend to run different setups on the two Mercedes cars, and then over the course of the weekend take the best bits from one car, stick it on the other car, and develop their own setups in that way, rather than doing the same thing the whole time. Certainly last time we were in the Slovakia ring, they had different setups for the race and qualifying for each of the two cars. Let's hear from one of the drivers, Marcus Winkelhock.
Marcus, this track certainly brings you good memories. How are you feeling about the race this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. I have good memories for this track, but I think this weekend is going to be really difficult for us. We are struggling a little bit with the cold temperatures. We don't get any temperature in the tire, and I think that will be a little issue now for the qualifying. But I hope that we can manage it, and then I hope that we can qualify as far as front in the qualifying. But I think it's not going to be easy for us for sure.
Wealth of experience that Mark and yourself bring to the team, though, it's got to be an advantage to you.
Yeah, absolutely. But for us, it's the most important thing is to get temperature in the tires. Yesterday, I was really struggling with that. I was slower with new tires than with old tires, and I hope today it's better.
Thank you.
Markus Winkelhock, you may remember, had his one and only Grand Prix appearance here back in 2007. He pitted right at the end of the formation lap, I think it was, to change onto wet weather tyres. Everyone else stayed out on slicks. The rain came down, chaos ensued, and in the spiker, Markus Winkelhock ended up leading the race for a couple of laps before he then got swamped by the rest of the pack. But still, leading a Formula One race at your home circuit is a pretty impressive achievement, and he'll be hoping to use some of that experience this weekend in what could well be changeable conditions. No sign of rain yet, just cloud around. I haven't heard any rain since we've been here. You can barely even see the castle up on the hill. Just the Nordschleife goes around the village of Nürburgring. We're just next to it, and you really can see the difficult conditions here after a pretty rainy start to the year at Nogaro and Zolder. We thought it had picked up with trips to the Algarve and Slovakia, but then Moscow brought us back down to earth, didn't it, with a dreadful weekend of weather, an entertaining weekend of racing, and a great experience for GT1 to go to Moscow and become the first FIA World Championship to visit Russia. But we were expecting a little bit more in terms of the weather. There you can see the overtaking opportunity down at the hairpin at turn 8. And that left-hander is technically turn 7. You see on the right-hand side, that kink is counted as turn 7, which is why this hairpin is turn 8, even though it's really only the 7th corner, notable corner anyway, on the circuit. There's the left-right flick through 5 and 6. You can see the grandstands there giving you the corner name, corner number I should say, and that is an important corner to get right on the run down into 8. You don't take a nice wide line in, you have to hug the inside a little bit more because of the way you get spat out of the left-hander at turn 8. There's the run up to the Michael Schumacher S, which will be pretty much flat out in these GT cars, maybe not on a full tank of fuel in cold conditions, but certainly in qualifying trim towards the end of third qualifying, if your tyres are up to temperature, it should be a flat out sweep up the hill. There you can see the cars getting ready. 24 is Mike Parisi and Jeroen Bleekemolen's car. Bleekemolen, plenty of GT experience for him, having, look at that pneumatic drill, drilling the steel girders down into the ground. That's good to see as well, isn't it? Because I remember in Zandvoort, in that qualifying session I mentioned earlier, I think they had to dig a hole to put the girder down into, but here they're getting properly drilled in, which is excellent news. And an update says the estimated start of qualifying will be at 10:40 now. And so let's hear in the meantime from Felipe Salaquada. The Ferraris should be looking forward to these conditions. As we said earlier with Castellacci, he's going to be in the 3 car and he's with Haley.
Philip, it's been a challenging season for you guys. How do you feel you're going to do here at the Nürburgring?
Yeah, in the Nürburgring, the weather forecast like this when it's cold is really good. Yesterday in the practice we've been quite fast. The car is working well, so I'm really looking forward how it goes in the qualifying. It will be very important because it's quite difficult to overtake here. So the place in the qualifying will be important. So we see.
Thank you.
Hope you could hear Philippe there over the Eurythmics blaring out around the Nürburgring this morning. And Philippe had a strong race in Moscow, ended up making contact with Grégoire de Moustier, which meant in the end they had to retire from the race, which was a disappointment obviously for them. De Moustier didn't lose out, which was probably justice really, because it was an ambitious move from Salaquada to get up the inside, and it didn't quite come off for him, sending the two of them spinning and forcing the Ferrari into the pits to retire with damage. So as far as the team's championship is concerned, Alinkel leading the way. As we've said, they've got a 20-30 point advantage pretty much over the Vita for One racing team. As you see the Armco barrier continuing to be repaired. 10:40 is the estimated restart time, as we've said, so About 20 minutes from now, we should finally be getting this session underway. It was literally, the checkered flag was out, which probably is what caused the accident, actually. We probably had some cars that had backed off, some cars that were still on it, and that's why we had the coming together up there at the final corner. Because I was in the commentary box getting ready, noticed the checkered flag out of the window, and then a few seconds later it was the red flag, which is unusual to see. But the engineering crews here at the Nürburgring doing a good job and working as fast as they can, bringing over these sheets of Armco. And of course, driver safety is paramount. Here's another look at it then. And, well, it was the 70 car that really moved across on the 37 that brought the two BMWs together and wiped them out of the race, out of that session anyway. It may well wipe them out of qualifying later on potentially for the Blancpain Endurance Series. There's the Mercedes-Benz grandstand down at turn 1. This of course in the olden days used to be just a chicane, where I think Ralf Schumacher ended up on top of Michael Schumacher in Formula 1 back in 1997, I think it must have been, because Ralf was in the Jordan, wasn't he? So I think it was 97 the two of them came together. So let's have a look at some GT3 bits and bobs. Maximilian Buch and Dominic Baumann, if they finish on the podium in this first race of the weekend later on today, then they will be crowned the 2012 FIA GT3 European champions. And so Buch and Dominic Baumann will be hoping to be strong this weekend. And Haley is down in the pit lane, and she has Maximilian Buch.
Max, you could walk away with the championship this weekend. How are you feeling about the race?
I'm feeling quite comfortable. I think we should be in a good position after the qualifying as well. We are very fast here because we had last weekend the race with the ADAC, with the German championship. So I think we could be on pole position today in both qualifyings.
So you could walk away with the title, and are you saying you're confident that you will?
I think we will.
Very good. Thank you, Max.
It's good to see the confidence from Maximilian Buch. As he said, they were here in the German GT Championship, the ADAC GT Masters, only last weekend. So they've got their car set up already pretty much. They know the way around this place, and they're feeling pretty confident about stealing the title. As I say, if they finish on the podium in this race, in the race later on today, then they will be declared the 2012 FIA GT3 champions. And where they decide to go from there, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously last year's champion was Francesco Castellacci, and he is now driving in the GT1 World Championship alongside Tony Belander. And there we've got a marshal just checking the drain pipes are down or something like that. The German marshals, some of the most enthusiastic, and it's a real good thing to see them out there doing their stuff. The amount of marshalling power needed, for example, for the Nürburgring 24 hours where the full Nordschleife circuit is used is absolutely phenomenal. Loads of British marshals go out as well to marshal there. There you can see the paddock. Very impressive facility this, as you'd expect from a Formula 1 venue. And when this qualifying session gets underway, which estimated will be 15 minutes time from now, so not too long before we get the cars out on track and the action underway here at the Nürburgring. I'm expecting pole position to possibly be in the 1 minute 55s. I'd say if we get a 1 minute 55.5, if you can pull out that kind of time, you may well be in with a shot of pole position. That would be my prediction. We'll have to wait and see how things transpire. The first qualifying session won't eliminate anyone. The first segment, I should say, won't eliminate anyone, because the top 14 cars go through, and we've only got 13 GT1 cars, so that won't be an issue. But then the second segment will eliminate the rest of the cars, which will mean we have 8 left for the third segment of qualifying, which will be really, well, it's interesting because we had Alvaro Parent do the third session of qualifying for the first time last in Moscow, and he took pole position. So I thought they might continue with that plan, but actually Alvaro Parent will be doing the second qualifying session. So Demoustier will do the first, Parent the second, and then Demoustier, if Parent can make it through, which I imagine he would, Demoustier would do the final qualifying session, the pole position shootout. So I think it's going to be a battle between Fred Makovicky and Tony Verlander and Jelmer Berman. They're my three tips for the top three. That's who I think we're going to see battling over pole position, possibly with Laurens Vanthoor and Ollie Jarvis in there, but I don't think the Audis quite have the pace that they have had in the last couple of rounds here. So there's the now iconic view down the start-finish straight. There you can see the pit lane on the left-hand side. As I say, it's BMW up that far end with the BMW bridge, and then here on the left-hand side we have the AMG Mercedes tower as well. Haley's down in the pit lane. She's got another GT3 driver. Michael Lyons is with her.
Michael, the battle for the GT3 Championship continues. The Ferraris certainly be consistent this season. How do you feel it's going to stand at the Nürburgring?
I think the cold conditions should really suit us, and it's going to be difficult to beat the Germans in their back garden, but we're going to give it our best. We had really good long run pace yesterday, and should be a good couple of races.
It's certainly a fun track, isn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, especially getting to do the fast chicanes around here. It's great. I've never raced before on the Mercedes arena in the first sector, and it's really good fun. It's great in the GT car. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks.
So Michael Lyons and Stefano Guy were in contention for the championship. They still technically are, but it would be a big achievement for them to usurp Baumann and Buch, because they're fourth in the championship. They've got Ardagna, Perez and Chiro and Mengsdorf and Procek in between them. So if David Mengsdorf and Harry Procek had done the opening round in Nogaro, then they would have been really challenging for the top positions in the championship. So whilst we've got a few minutes to go before the qualifying session gets underway, we'll have a look at a film about a Corvette around the Nordschleife from a few years ago called Ghosts of the Ring. And there you can see the Nordschleife down in the bottom of your picture, the iconic German racetrack. So the Nordschleife, an incredible venue, and the Nürburgring does a reasonable job, the actual Grand Prix loop, of still being a good circuit. It's in the same mould as the now Red Bull Ring in Austria, where you had the long, fast Österreich Ring, now the shortened A1 Ring as it was initially when it hosted the Grand Prix, and then now the Red Bull Ring. It's still a great little venue. In fact, Red Bull Ring may well be one of my favourite circuits in the world, because it's an absolutely beautiful place. But this is quite impressive here at the Nürburgring, and is that sun creeping through on the right hand side? It may well be, in which case it's going to be very, very impressive. So before we get qualifying underway, which should be in the next 10 minutes or so, let's have a little look back at what happened in Moscow in case you missed out on some of the brilliant action we had in Russia a couple of weeks ago. The 7th round of the GT1 World Championship saw the teams take to the Moscow Raceway. Stefano Telli led the wet race at the start, but he ran wide at the first corner, allowing Markus Winkelhock to slither up the inside and move into the lead. Soon after, the McLaren was up into second place, and the Ferraris, after a poor qualifying race, were starting to fight their way through the field. The two Audis were battling each other for supremacy, but again it was the number 3 Ferrari that was on a charge, making up more positions on this occasion, going past the early race leader Stefano Telli and the qualifying race winner from earlier on. There was also an intense inter-team battle at Hexis McLaren. Alvaro Parent sliding past Fred Makovicky up the inside to move past his teammate and up into second place and set his sights on the leader. He passed the leader in the end, going up the hill, getting to the inside of Markus Winkelhock, outbraking him and taking the lead of the race for Hexis. At the pit stops, Fred Makovicky came in to hand over to Stef Dusseldorp, clouting the pit lane marker as he did so, and that would take the McLarens back out in second place. The two Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes were battling hard, Thomas Jaeger and Markus Winkelhock going side by side through the final corner, but their battling ultimately allowed the number 3 Ferrari through. But then there was a change for the lead. Parent had handed over to de Moustier, and Stef Dusseldorp forced his way past the number 2 Hexis McLaren and into the lead of the race. Francesco Castellacci was now challenging Nicky Pastorelli in the Mercedes, getting up the inside on the run down into the left-hander at turn 12. Then Philippe Salaquada was right up behind Gregoire de Moustier, sent it up the inside into turn 5. There was contact between the two of them, and de Moustier was sent spinning. Only a few moments later, and Salaquada sent Nicky Pastorelli spinning as well. Both Ferraris receiving penalties, but it was the race win for Fred Makovicky and Stef Dusseldorp after a brilliant drive in the rain in Moscow. So that's what happened in Moscow a couple of weeks ago. And now we're here in Germany for the penultimate round of the season with the battle of the German drivers. Jelmer Berman, the Dutchman there, partnering Michael Bartels. He is the only Dutchman in a four-way battle of the Germans for the title. We've also got the Dutchman Stef Dusseldorp and the Frenchman Fred Makovicky in third place in the championship, in contention for that World Championship title that these drivers crave so much. As I say, Ortelli, Van Thor, Jaeger, Pastorelli, Jarvis and Stippler all technically in with a shot of winning the title, but in reality, unlikely to. Alinkel looking in control at the top of the team's championship. At the moment, Vita Vaughan Racing Team in second place with Belgian Audi Club behind them. Hexis down in fourth place, not really deserving of their performance so far this season. They have had reliability problems in the early stage of the season, but since the Slovakia ring, really those problems appear to have been sorted. They, of course, are there in fifth place. Reiter Engineering again. Sixth place for them is strange because they've had fastest laps in two of the races so far this season. Peter Cox, a very quick driver. Darrell O'Young not with us this weekend, but a very quick driver. Stefan Rossina, a very quick driver. Thomas Enger we had earlier in the season, of course, as well. All very, very quick drivers. And so it really has been curious that Reiter haven't quite been able to work out that pace into race results. They're yet to have a podium so far this season, are Reiter Engineering. So the Armco barrier looks like it's almost repaired, which is brilliant news. And there you can see the two AF Corsa Ferraris for the FIA GT3 European Championship, because as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be out in this session as well. A podium for Dominic Baumann and Maximilian Buch would seal the championship, because this is the final round of their season. Stefan O'Guy and Michael Lyons in second place. David Mengsdorf and Harry Prochik in third position, with Ardagna Perez and Giuseppe Ciro in fourth place. So it really is Guy and Lyons and Mengsdorf and Prochik who are the men able to close in on Baumann and Buch, who really have been the class of the field so far this season. It's been a very impressive performance from them. But if Prochik and Mengsdorf had done the full season instead of missing the first round at Nagaro, they could well have been up there challenging the Heiko Gravity Charouz's team for the title. It's much closer for the team's championship though. AF Corsa and Heiko Gravity Charouz very, very close together. Only 7 points separating the pair of them, with Rhino's Leipert Motorsport in third place, Russian Bear Motorsport in fourth, and the Russian Bear Ferraris were looking pretty strong actually in free practice. Science-Lock Racing in fifth, with Ester Motorsports in sixth place. But there you can see the GT3 field towards this near end of the field. But let's hear now from Hans Reiter of Reiter Engineering. He's with Hayley Coxon.
Hans, here we are in Germany at this fantastic track. The team have definitely been looking forward to this round. It hasn't been a great season for you, but how do you feel you're going to do at the ring?
Well, I hope it was a season with many up and downs, and I hope we are on up here. At the moment it looks like good. I think we could be competitive here. The circuit suits our car, and yeah, I'm optimistic. Hopefully, or we're really working hard to finish the season in a high and not in a down.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we've still got the estimated start of qualifying being 10:40, which is good news because that's only 4 minutes away, and they haven't decided to push that back yet. But we'll have to wait and see exactly when that occurs. And there you can see the Armco barrier still being dealt with up there at the final sequence of corners at turn 14 and 15, just before the final sector. The final sector actually is very, very short. We've got there's only 3 corners in it really. It's the left, right at the chicane, and then the right-hander at turn 17, and that's it. So it's a very short final sector here when you compare it to the amount of corners you've got in sector 1, which is something like 6. In sector 2 you've got another 8 corners, so sector 3 really is not going to be a particularly important sector in general, as it doesn't constitute as much of the lap time as sector 1 and sector 2. Here you can see exactly how the sectors line up here. So this is sector 1 now, all the way down to this hairpin. That's where sector 1 ends. Then sector 2 goes from the hairpin all the way up to the quick chicane. You'll see it a little more clearly here, but there you can see sector 3 is just the chicane and that final corner, which around this 5.137 kilometre circuit is going to be less of an importance as sector 1 and sector 2. 15 turns, and you may well hear me referring to the final corner as turn 17, because that is the official FIA description of the corners on this circuit. So if I get a message on the timing screen saying yellow flag at turn 17, for example, that is because the FIA have decided the final corner is turn 17, because turn 7 and turn 16 are in reality non-corners, but they are deemed official corners by the FIA. I hope that's clear for you, but there you can see the circuit being swept. And hopefully it won't be too long before this qualifying session gets underway, because it's going to be a very entertaining one. I think the pole position shootout is going to be very, very close indeed, I would have thought. The first session will be 20 minutes long, and from that we will get a GT3 pole for the race later on today, and we will also give the starting drivers a run out, those that will be competing in the pole position shootout a run out for their pole position shootout later on. Then we will move on to the second segment of qualifying, which will be 15 minutes long for GT1. They will come in with 5 minutes to go to allow GT3 to finish their session. And so that will set the grid for the GT3 race tomorrow, and it will eliminate 6 of the cars in FIA GT1, and then we'll have the final 10-minute shootout for pole position, which will be to decide the grid for today's qualifying race, which will, well, is due to come at 2 o'clock local time. Whether this delay today will have any impact on the timetable, we'll have to wait and see, but I imagine they will do everything in their power to make sure it does begin at the same time. There's Marcus Winkelhock, and he's going to be hoping to be strong here. As we said, he wasn't particularly strong yesterday. Did 28 laps in free practice 2, the most laps of the second most laps of anyone other than Francesco Castellacci. but he could only go 11th quickest with a 1 minute 57.028. So perhaps they were just working on pure race pace. That's looking good, isn't it? That's looking good, chaps. We should be able to get this session underway before too much longer. I know I've been saying that for quite a long time now, but things are really have made progress. And there you can see the GT1 field certainly very keen to get underway, I'd imagine. Stef Dusseldorp, the Dutch driver for Hexus McLaren. He's had a bit of experience here, racing in various Formula 3 series, but not much experience here in GT cars. I'm expecting him to be pretty quick. He's proved himself to be a very, very fast pedaler so far this season. And the sun just coming out. It keeps threatening to come out, doesn't it, the sun? But yet, oh, look at that. There's a real break in the clouds. We could be on for a beautiful day here at the Nürburgring. And you can see the beautiful surrounding countryside. Very similar to Spa on the drive-in. You could have been driving into Spa. We are only, of course, an hour away from the famous Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Can you imagine being around in the 60s and living in the middle of Spa and the Nürburgring, and you'd have half an hour one way and you're at Spa-Francorchamps with its run from the town of Spa all the way down to Malmedy and Stavelot, and then go half an hour the other way and you're at the Nordschleife. That would have been an epic place to live, wouldn't it? Back in the 60s and the 70s. So the pit lane, I imagine, full of frustration. Let's hear from Nicky Meyer-Melnoff again, and let's see whether he's getting frustrated. Oh, I wonder what he's listening to.
Nicky, what music is getting you ready for the qualifying session?
Yeah, it's a little bit of electronic music to get pumped up and forget the cold temperatures here, and get positive vibes for the cold weather here, and to attack maximum.
I have to steal an ear from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think she means one of the earphones rather than steal his actual ear, but he's obviously getting psyched. We know Nicky likes clubbing. If you saw the Moscow video we made from the capital city of Russia a couple of weeks ago, you'll have seen Nicky in a you'll have seen Nicky in a club and then taking a Mercedes SLS through the streets of Moscow, which was great fun to film at 4 o'clock on a cold morning in Russia. So the session will start at 10:45. That's the official news. It's just been given. So 2 minutes to go, everybody, and we will have the qualifying session underway. Excellent news, and it will give us the first true examples of who really has the pace here, because they could have been trying out all sorts in the free practices, but now they will just be going flat out for lap times. Because there was a concern that if no team would get eliminated, no drivers and cars would get eliminated, that there wouldn't be any real desire to go out there and go fast. But this is the first time they will have driven the cars today, the first time they'll have driven the cars in these cold conditions. And these are the drivers that will be battling for pole position, if their teammates get them through to the pole position shootout. So it is very important for them to head out there and get their sighting laps done and get into the flow of things. Well, you can see the GT3 cars on the near side, and then the GT1 cars down the far end. So that's where all the action will be taking place in the pit stops during the race as well. There's the TVU Rhineland Tower, the BMW bridge, the row of commentary boxes just on the left of the BMW bridge is where I'm situated. Normally we have the aircon on full in here, but today I'm looking for the heating switch, and there doesn't appear to be one. There are the two Reiter Engineering Lamborghinis. I'm interested to see how Jeroen Bleekemolen does. As I say, 2001 he was runner-up with Mike Hazemans in FIA GT. He's got plenty of experience. He finished 6th last year in the 2010 I think it was, in the Porsche Michelin Porsche Super Cup, so he's got plenty of experience. Also raced in A1 GP all those years ago for Team Netherlands, picking up a number of wins. But here we go, qualifying underway. Excellent to see some cars out on the circuit here at the Nürburgring. Only 50 minutes after we were expecting to see them. And as you can see, they're all heading out onto the circuit straight away, save the Ferraris, the McLarens and the Ford GT. All the other GT1 cars have headed out onto the circuit immediately, and as they like to do, it's the Alenco Mercedes who are the first cars out there on the circuit. And that's a spin already for one of the Sainteloc racing cars. That's Jerome de May who has spun that. That's very odd. And what a bizarre spin that was. Very slow speed. I guess the tyres are going to be very cold, but you'd expect a little more from Jerome de May. He is, of course, the reigning ADAC GT Masters champion, so he knows his way around a GT car in Germany. He's had a little spin coming out of turn 1. Nothing too dramatic, though. There are the Audis coming down into the left-hander at turn 5. Well, the circuit drops away from you. Being driven around it yesterday in the TV car, you really noticed the undulation is a lot more severe than on the simulators. And another spin straight out of the pits for the Nova driver Audi this time. That's Natalia Fredina, has had a little rotation. Now up at the Schumacher S. 2 Mercedes, 2 Lamborghinis, a BMW, and then the 2 Audis, all just backing off to find a little bit of space. And now the Ferraris come out of the pits, 2 by 2. 2 by 2 by 2 in this qualifying session so far. The essence of GT1, and it really does make for a spectacular sight. No tyre warming equipment is allowed in GT1, so that'll explain the reason for the cold tyres. It's Marc Basseng and Nicky Pastorelli at the wheel of 38 and 37 respectively. So what can Basseng do to try and get some temperature in those tyres? That's going to be the interesting thing to look at. So, well, you can see he's already weaving down the start-finish straight is Marc Basseng. As he comes down into the first corner, you can see they're all weaving to try and get some heat into their tyres. It is a bit chilly. It's a long walk over from the paddock. So when I got here I took off my jacket, but I'm regretting that move now. Car 10 must check its transponder because apparently Gropin is down on the transponder. Yeah, that makes sense because it should be Benjamin Lariche. McLaren's not going out yet, so I wonder what their thinking is. No particular rush for them to get out on the circuit. That's interesting. I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd have waited a little bit to give themselves a bit of a gap to the rest of the cars, but wait maybe half a lap or so before sending your cars out, so you're in the second half of the lap to have more clear air. But on this occasion, it doesn't quite seem to make sense. A 58.1 in the first sector is the quickest so far, and that's from Peter Cox. We are expecting times some 3 seconds quicker than that, though. I'm expecting 55 ones, maybe even creeping into the 54s as far as the first sector is concerned, so nowhere near the peak lap times so far. That Mercedes roaring past the camera position. And they really do sound brilliant, the Mercedes. Basseng was a 45.1 in the middle sector. Again, some 3 seconds off the pace, so this is probably going to be a 2-minute plus lap time for, well, it's definitely going to be a 2-minute plus lap time for Marc Basseng on his first lap out of the pits. So across the line he goes, and it's a 2-minute 3, so now we'll see if he's found a little bit more pace. Has he got the tyres up to temperature now? Into turn 1, running just about wide enough down at turn 1 on the exit. On the exit of turn 4, the race director has said he'd doesn't mind basically if the cars go over all four wheels over the white line, because it is generally the accepted thing to do. You'll see it through this right-hander at 4, and going out over there where you just saw Nicky Pastorelli go is absolutely fine, no problems with that at all this weekend. They've got to be careful with four wheels over the white line up at the chicane, but that's about it. Everywhere else on the circuit isn't going to be too harshly judged. So look at that, 55.8, that's a little bit better for Marc Basseng this time around. 55.7 for Peter Cox, who's just come through the first sector. He's the quickest man out there so far with a 2 minute 1.4. Up through the Schumacher S, and then into turn 11, and then you'll see Basseng kind of take the middle of the road, not send it out too wide to come back in for the corner at turn 12, which is vitally important because it gives you a long run down the back straight, going past Natalia Frodina there into turn 13, and there's a lot of traffic up in front for Marc Basseng. He threads his way past one of the Heiko Mercedes, and then past one of the Ferraris as well. Good traffic navigation, it has to be said there by Basseng. Absolutely swept past them. Out of the final corner, he'll have lost a lot of time there though, and as a result it's going to be a 58.5 for Marc Basseng as he comes across the line. Peter Cox goes quicker with a 57.7, so those Lamborghinis may be looking quite quick here today. There is Peter Cox at the wheel. The Dutch driver having to bail out of turn 1 because there was a GT3 Ferrari parked on the apex, and I think that is Stefano Guy, so this isn't really going to be a good lap for Peter Cox because he got caught out behind Stefano Guy. There's a lot of traffic all over the place actually, isn't there? Oliver Jarvis, you can see in the 33 Audi, not getting in the way as such, but just being on his outlap. As far as GT3 is concerned, so far the quickest driver is Niamarim in the 114 Team Nova driver car. There you can see the empty pit lane, a different sight to the one we saw earlier. Now we've still got the 18 car of Jelmer Berman in the pits. He went out, did an installation lap, and then came straight back in. So, and the 17 car behind is coming in as well. So it'll be interesting to find out exactly what the plan is here. A change of tyres going on behind, so perhaps they're just deciding whether to test if the new tyres or the old tyres are better. So here comes Fred Makovicky, a man who I think may be challenging for pole position. He exits the final corner at 17. There's his boss, Philippe Dumas, watching as the McLaren comes across the line. Let's see what he can do. Maybe not quite enough heat in the tyres yet on this first lap to do anything impressive. Lawrence Vanthoor's the quickest man so far with a 57.5, which would have put him second slowest in yesterday's free practice session. But as I say, yesterday's free practice session was in 15-degree heat. Scorching, frankly, compared to today. So maybe my guesstimations of a 55 pole time are going to be a little bit warped by the weather conditions. Into 5 and 6. There's another example of where you get flung out of 5 and so you don't get the chance to get wide enough going down into 6. What's this first sector time going to be like? 2.5 seconds off the pace. To be expected really. Makovicky still getting his tyres up to temperature, I'd imagine. Tony Verlander has just gone fastest of anyone in Sector 1. The number 3 Ferrari. So he may well be out to set a good lap. And then Lawrence Vanthoor goes quickest of anyone in Sector 1 as well. So a few different brands battling for supremacy this weekend. I think we could have a very good fight on our hands here at the Nürburgring. The McLaren comes down the hill. Through the left-hand kink. You can see Makowiecki well off the pace, but that's simply because the tyres aren't up to temperature yet. That quick flick will do the world of good, and Makowiecki possibly not even pushing just yet either. De Moustier has gone out on circuit as well, his teammate. But Lauda and Berman still in the pits for the Vitavorn racing team. It's a very interesting one, isn't it? There are the Zoo Ferraris then, and Tony Villander goes quickest of anyone then. And Enzo Eid goes second quickest, but soon usurped by Peter Cox, who goes quickest. Then Mike Parisi jumps up to third quickest. It's all kicking off, and now Laurens Vanthoor goes quickest. All change in the top. These 5 cars, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Lamborghinis, and then that Audi, all took quicker lap times than each other on that last lap. So it's a 55.9 for Laurens Vanthoor. That's a mightily impressive lap time, actually, from Laurens. Very, very impressive indeed. Fastest lap time of the weekend so far in these cold conditions. It's probably warming up a little outside, but nevertheless, that's a very, very impressive lap time indeed from Laurens Vanthoor. He set the fastest sector in sectors 1 and 3. But Tony Villander, this man, has just gone quickest in sector 1, up by 0.135 tenths of a second. And whilst this doesn't necessarily count for anything grid-wise as far as GT1 is concerned, it nevertheless is going to give us a very good indication of who is quick of these drivers if they get through into the final segment of qualifying. Villander out through turn 12. Let's see what his second sector time is like. We're looking for a 42.5 roughly to be a good time. So 42.6, so he's still up at the moment on Laurens Vanthoor's time. This could be the quickest lap of the weekend so far from Tony Villander. He's already picked up 2 pole positions so far this season. He's a master of qualifying. He's a master of Ferraris as well. And he comes over the line to do a 1 minute 55.855. So he lost out a little in that final sector, but it's still the quickest time we've had all weekend. Vanthoor can't improve. He does a 56.9. So at the moment we've got Villander quickest in the Ferrari, Vanthoor second quickest in the Audi, then Eid in the Ferrari, Cox and Parisi in the 2 Lamborghinis, 4th and 5th quickest, but both are now in the pits. Nicky Pastorelli in 6th. The curious one really is Marc Basseng, currently 9th quickest. 9th quickest, slower than Benjamin Lariche at the moment, Marc Basseng. So, as they told us, the Mercedes really struggling with the cold tyres. Their teammate, his teammate Nicky Pastorelli has done a 57.9. So his teammate's 6 tenths of a second quicker. Down the hill comes Laurens Vanthoor again. What's this first sector going to be like? Well off the pace, a 58.5, so 3.7 seconds off the pace. In GT3, just to keep you up to date, Maximilian Buch is the quickest man, so it's looking like he's going to take pole position at the moment, but of course we've still got 6 minutes or so remaining in this session. Up the hill comes Villander. This is a good lap now, 3 tenths of a second up. Here comes Tony Villander. This could put him into the mid-55s now. The sun really coming out here at the Nürburgring. Across the line comes Villander, and it's a 55.450. Very good lap. 4 tenths of a second quicker than Laurens Vanthoor. And as we thought, the Ferraris are going to be strong this weekend. No doubt about that at all. They started the season strongly in Nogaro, but then it was chilly there. Or at least it wasn't the heat that we had in the Algarve and Slovakia, and Navarra as well. There's some of the GT3 cars coming through. Oh, that was a bit of a slide from Harry Procek. Ford GT makes its way around turn 8. 55.6 in the first sector for Benjamin Lariche. It's his personal best so far. 231 kilometers an hour he was doing through the speed trap. Throws it through the Schumacher S. He raced here last season in FIA Formula 2. The sun really coming out now. Beautiful stuff. This is what we wanted when we came to the Nürburgring, not to be greeted by that early morning fog that we've had. And what is this second sector time going to be like for Benjamin? It's a personal best again of 43.077 through the quick chicane. And into the final corner comes Lariche. This could jump him up the order a little bit. He's currently in 8th place. He does a 57.4. It does in the end leave him in 8th place. So no big improvement. But now, actually, Nicky Pastorelli has slid down to 9th place as well. So the Mercedes are 9th and 11th. And the BMWs are 10th and 13th. Wow. This could be quite a weekend for Fred Makovic and Steph Dusseldorp if this pace is to be repeated. But here we go. Here's Marc Basseng. He is, sorry, not Marc Basseng, Jelmer Berman in the 18 Vita1 Racing BMW. 55.2 in Sector 1 is decent, but not spectacular. Benjamin Lariche actually has the fastest middle sector of anyone. That's a very impressive achievement for Lariche. No, sorry, that's the straight line speed. He's got the quickest straight line speed of anyone. He does have a fast middle sector, but that's now been usurped just by Fred Makovic, who's done a 42.4. So Lariche strong in the middle sector, not the quickest anymore, but he does have the quickest straight line speed of anyone. Berman now is quickest in the middle sector, 42.358. So BMW's fears of the colder conditions don't seem to be true at the moment, because out of the final corner comes Jelmer Berman. Is he about to go quickest of anyone? I don't think so. I don't think he's quite got enough in the tank for that, but he goes third quickest, 56.022. He really lost out in the first sector, I think. The first sector was where the BMW lost all of its time. So let's see if he can, well, we'll keep an eye on the timing screens to see if he can improve that this time. There's Marc Basseng. Maybe the Mercedes are just going to have to stay out there for ages and ages and ages to try and get some heat into the tyres. There's only 2 minutes left, of course, but in the sessions later on, perhaps they've just got to... It's still weaving to get heat in the tyres. And he's been out there for, what, 7 laps now? 7 laps completed for Marc Basseng, and he's still having to weave the tyres to get heat into them. The Al Inkle squad didn't struggle this much in Moscow, I'm sure of it. They weren't quite as strong as they may have been, but they still finished second in the qualifying race and 5th in the championship race, albeit with the rain may have helped them. But there's Thomas Jaeger on the left-hand side. He knows his way around the Nürburgring and the Nordschleife in an SLS. And Marc Basseng has backed out of this one, has he? Letting through some of the GT3 cars to give himself some clear air. He's not going to have time to get round to the start-finish line again before the checkered flag comes out, or is he? Oh, it's going to be very tight. I don't think he will, if I'm being honest, because he's probably got about 50 seconds to travel in 50 seconds, so he'd have to drive it flat out if he wants to get across the line before the checkered flag falls. Matthias Lauda is out on circuit now. There he is. The Austrian driver doing a 56.2 in Sector 1, which is well off the pace. Grégoire de Moustier, 12th quickest so far, with a 58.5. Everyone is in the pits now except Pastorelli, Basseng and Lauda. as far as GT3 is concerned, Maximilian Buch has taken pole position. There's almost no doubt about that. Other drivers are still out on the circuit, but Buch has a 1.4 second advantage at the top. So really, it's theirs. Across the line then comes Lauda. What can he do? 58.1, moves him up into 11th place. Nicky Melnov says, dearie me, we can't quite get the heat. But Jelmer Berman has managed to find some heat, hasn't he? Because he's third quickest. Checker flag falls then. Now, so Lauda's still got a chance to do another lap. He had to negotiate Natalia Frodina on his way round though, so that may well have cost him a little bit. And running very, very wide out there, but there you can see down at the bottom the pole position car for the GT3 race later on today. Maximilian Buch setting a great lap. There's one of the AF Corsa Ferraris from GT3 as the GT1 cars come back into the pit lane then. After an interesting qualifying session. We didn't expect pace from the BMWs, but Jelmer Berman managed to pull it out of somewhere. The quickest car of all though, Tony Villander, a 55.450 in the Ferrari. Very impressive lap time from him. Very impressive indeed. Villander has the fastest first sector, Berman has the fastest middle sector, and Jarvis has the fastest third sector. So we've got Ferrari, Audi, BMW, Audi, McLaren, Ferrari, Lambo, Ford, Mercedes. Let's have a look. Well, this tells you exactly what I was just saying. Ferrari, Audi, BMW, Audi, and then you've got the McLaren in 5th place. Look at the two Mercedes-Benzes, 10th and 12th place for them. There's going to be a lot of head scratching down at Alinkel after that first segment of qualifying. Vanthoor and Ortelli could be dark horses for pole position here. Vanthoor it will be who will take the pole position shootout. And there you can see Passarelli and Jaeger in 10th place, with Basseng and Winkelhock in 12th place. Basseng and Winkelhock challenging for the championship. Only 6 points off the championship lead here, but at their home race, they're down in 12th place after the first segment of qualifying. Okay, so the first segment doesn't really mean much, but I think it showed us the true pace, and even at any point in the weekend to be 3 seconds off pole position is going to be very, very disappointing indeed. So the Mercedes with a lot of head scratching to do. There you can see Vinky on the on the right hand side, ready to climb aboard. And let's just see what Mark Basseng's reaction is. Winkelhock climbs aboard, and there you can see Mark Basseng. Let's see what he thinks of that session, as he's talking to the engineer. So it's going to be a difficult time for Mark and his team. They're going to do the best that they can do with the car in these current circumstances. And Mark Basseng actually very, very busy chatting to his engineer, and we saw him, he'd been out there for 7 laps and he was still weaving from left to right to try and get heat in the tyres. Just trying to hear what he was saying, but can't quite make it out through the helmet, and let's hear from him.
Sorry, Mark.
No problem.
Mark, tell us what the issue was.
It was just planned what we do. It was because related to the temperature problem. We have really big problems to get the front tires in. So we bet now all sets in, and now we hope we can push and the cars on both axles in the same shape.
We still saw you weaving down the start-finish straight, still trying to get temperature into the tyres, hoping that you'll be able to deliver still towards the end of the session.
Yeah, it is unbelievable that we can't get temperature in the front tyres. Nothing, they are just shattering over the track, and the rear is quite quick in, which is normal with the power. But yeah, we need maybe to brake a lot in the inlet, and then we hope the car comes into balance, otherwise we have no chance.
What is it about the Mercedes that just can't get temperature up in those tyres?
I mean, it is the advantage of the car in hot conditions. It saves the tires. It's really nice to the tires. But if you have conditions like that, you need a car which really is hard to the tires, which squeeze the sidewall and makes it working, because that creates temperature. And then it starts to get better. If you're just sliding over the surface, you don't get temperature. You just get temperature in the 1 millimeter compound, but there the tire is not working. You need it really heated through the whole material.
Thank you, Mark.
So Mark Basseng, a frustrated man, but by the sounds of it, that wasn't then the Mercedes' true pace. I think that's what Mark was saying, was that he was weaving just to try and get some temperature into the front tyres so that a heat cycle has been through all the front tyres. And as a result, they'll then be easier to get heat into in the next qualifying session. I think that's what he meant. And so we'll have to wait and see if he's 3 seconds off the pace. If Marcus Winkelhock's 3 seconds off the pace in this next session, then obviously that wasn't what he meant, and it's not going well for Mercedes at all. But I think we might see a stronger showing from Al Inkel in this next session. So the sun's out here at the Nürburgring. Not hugely out, but it's out a lot more than it was earlier on. Let's have a look at the GT3 qualifying results then. There you can see the Heiko Gravity Charoux team of Dominic Baumann and Maximilian Buch will be on pole position for the race, in which, if they finish on the podium, they'll be crowned the champions. So really, with a 1.4 second margin over Mengsdorf and Project, this should be a really good chance for them to seal the title that they very much deserve. Nilsson and Vähämäki, their teammates, in third place. Guy and Lyons in fourth place. Ardagna Perez and Chiro in fifth position. Lee Amarim and Cesar Campanico in sixth. Miguel Toril and Sergei Ryabov in seventh place. Jerome Demey and Dino Lunardi in eighth. Vaishliv Maliv and Kirill Ladygin in 10th. Leganov and Vähämäki in 10th. And Natalia Frodina will line up in 11th place on the grid. So that will be the grid for this afternoon's race, as the next session gets underway. This second segment will be 15 minutes long. The GT1 cars will come in after 15 minutes, and then another 5 minutes will pass on GT3. So, well, it's a very different look to the circuit now that the sun's come out, hasn't it? It was absolutely miserable earlier on, but now it's a glorious sunny day here at the Nürburgring, and everything looks a lot better for it. Look at that, all of a sudden we're up to 20 degrees track temperature. It was 8 when this program started back, well, it feels like yesterday at the moment, but earlier this morning it was about 8 degrees on the circuit. Now we're up to 19, so that's going to help the Mercedes. It's going to help the BMWs as well. It's going to hurt the Ferraris a little bit, but I think this kind of temperature is okay for them, track temperature-wise. It's as soon as we start getting into the high 20s that we saw in Slovakia and the Algarve that the Ferraris really struggle. Out goes Marcus Winkelhock in the red-trimmed Mercedes. Then the Ferrari of Francesco Castellacci. Then we're going to see the true pace of the Lamborghinis as well, because they were on the pace in the early stages, but they decided to pit early. Other cars stayed out to set more lap times. But the Lamborghinis came into the pits. Nice little horn from the fans, and there's the two Vida 1 Racing Team BMWs out there. It's now Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff and Michael Bartels at the wheel. Bartels leading in that 18 car. 17 behind is Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff. Thomas Jaeger's just gone past to be the first man to start a hot lap. Meyer-Melnhoff backs himself off to give himself some room. So let's hear from the fastest man in that first segment of qualifying, Tony Verlander, who's with Haley Coxham.
Tony, Ferrari's fastest in that session. You must be happy with that.
Yeah, it's quite okay. I mean, I had a good pace yesterday in practice too with the old tires, so it was something more or less I was expecting. The track was quite cold in Q1, so it took a few laps to get heat on those tires, but overall quite happy, and now it's up to Philip to make us go to Q3.
Thank you.
So Tony Villander handing over to his teammate Francesco Castellacci, Felipe Salaquada in the number 3 of course of Ferrari, to try and bring the car home and bring it through into the next segment of qualifying. A few awry transponders out there for the chaps, but no problems for number 18, Michael Bartels, exiting turn 6. Let's see what he can do down to, he's busy warming the tyres as well. And he does a 57.7 in the first sector, which is not really an attempt to be on the pace, I don't think. Thomas Jaeger's come through to do a 55.6. There you can see Stefano Telli, who I think might be quite quick in this qualifying session. If he's not through into the final top 8 shootout, I'll be very surprised indeed. Don't forget we've got the GT3 cars out there as well. And they are setting their qualifying times for the second race of the weekend, which is tomorrow. And there is Stefano Telli, former Le Mans winner, former driver of everything really. Had that nasty crash in a LMP car at Monza a couple of years ago, which damaged his ankles fairly badly, but he's certainly not lost none of his skill, having won the championship race earlier on in Zolder, and he's such a spectacular driver, particularly at the Slovakia ring, Telli. We go on board now. Nice little chip in the windscreen there on the run down into turn 8. This is on board with Marcus Winkelhock. And we'll have a little go around then, up the hill, through the... Let's see if it's flat out through here. Bit of a lift to bring the back end around for Winkelhock. Then up into turn 11. Down a gear, plenty of curb on the inside. He does find time to get all the way back out wide. Oh, hasn't got the apex right there at all. The back end just stepping out as he tried to turn it in, having to have 2 bites at the apex there, Winkelhock. And as a result, it's not going to be a stunner of a lap through the quick chicane at the end of the circuit. It's great to use that chicane actually, because the chicane they use for Formula 1 is very, very slow and clumsy. So it is nice to have them use that fast little flick. Across the line comes Winkelhock to do a 57.5. That's already quicker than they went in the first segment of qualifying. So I think that was all planned from Basseng, just to concentrate on getting heat into the front tyres, which essentially he would do by using the front tyres a lot more than he needed to, being more aggressive on the turn-in, holding the car on tighter lines through the corners in order to work the front tyres, bring them up to temperature a little bit more, put a heat cycle through them, and then allow his teammate to use it properly. Down towards the hairpin in the end of sector 1 comes Winkelhock, running out wide. Let's see what he can do here. It's going to be a 55.264. That's a decent first sector from Winkelhock. Not too bad at all. So the Mercedes not struggling for pace quite as much, I don't think, as perhaps that first segment suggested to us. Turning in on the white line there can be dangerous. He gets away with it in these dry conditions. 8 minutes to go for GT1 in this second segment of qualifying. What's this middle sector going to be like? It's a 42.7, which isn't awful either. So this is going to give him a 56 something, I think, Marcus Winkelhock, which will immediately be better than his free practice 2 result, which was a 57.0. Across the line he comes, and it's a 56.4 in fact. Very strong final sector from Marcus Winkelhock. And he goes provisionally quickest at the moment. There you can see Steph Dusseldorp now. Quickest of anyone in Sector 1. Decent in Sector 2. Nicky Mermanov has been off at turn 14 and then continued, so he's made a mistake at the chicane somewhere. Across the line comes the McLaren to do a 56.215. Quickest man so far in this session. Steph Dusseldorp. Thomas Jaeger did a very good middle sector, but then decided to come into the pits, so that's an interesting one. Not quite sure why he would have decided to do that. He did go out very early on in the session, so perhaps he's just got to the end of his run sooner. Alvaro Parent, what can he do? He goes quickest with a 56.200. Michael Bartels goes 6th quickest in the BMW with a 56.640. That's good news for the Mercedes, because the BMW isn't as quick at the moment, and they've both been on the circuit for the same amount of time. Here now comes Jeroen Bleekemolen. A welcome to GT1 for him. Well, the FIA GT1 World Championship anyway. Competed in FIA GT in a GT1 car back in 2001. This is his first appearance in the World Championship. That was a very slow lap from him. He backed off somewhere in the middle sector, possibly from that Mercedes in front to try and give himself some clear air. But at the moment it's a McLaren 1-2 with Mercedes 3rd, Lamborghini 4th in the hands of Stefan Rossina. Good lap from Stefan. Alvaro Parent has gone purple in Sector 1 with a 54.6. Steph Dusseldorp has done a 54.6 as well, and now the quickest lap time of anyone in Sector 2. Stefano Telli goes quickest with a 56.0, but I would hazard a guess that Dusseldorp is about to beat that. Out of the final corner comes the number 1 McLaren. Across the line, can he get into the 55s? A 55.472 for Steph Dusseldorp. A great lap time from him. And the McLarens are looking very, very strong this weekend. We could well have McLaren versus Ferrari up at the front of the field. Could have McLaren versus McLaren at the front of the field, because into the final corner comes Alvaro Parent. He took pole position in Moscow. Is he going to set the quickest time of this segment here? No, he's not. Half a tenth of a second off his teammate. Ortelli 3rd, then Rossina 4th still. Michael Bartels has now jumped up into 5th place. There is Stefan Ortelli, who has done an okay first sector. Not great really, 54.9, 3/10 off the pace. And Monegasque driver, hoping that he will have sorted it out in the middle sector. They may well back off and come into the pits, but it's the top 8 that go through, and at the moment 8th and 9th are the 2 Mercedes, so they may be struggling to get through into the final section of qualifying. Also struggling in the 2 Ferraris. They're in 11th and 13th place, Castellacci and Salaquada. Oh, running very wide is Ortelli, pushing hard because he's done a purple middle sector. I said he needed something special in that middle sector. Something special he has found. What's he going to do as he comes across the line? He jumps up into 3rd place with a 55.715. Again, slower than he has been in sectors 1 and 3. So there's definitely more pace to come from that Audi. Philippe Salaquada jumps up into 8th place in the number 3 Ferrari. That pushes out Winkelhock and Jaeger. Neither Mercedes going through to the pole position shootout just yet. Here's Alvaro Parent. He's still on it. Personal best, the best of anyone in Sector 1. Personal best in Sector 2. And this is going to be quicker from Parent. 55.240. Fastest lap of the weekend. A bit of a messy final sector from Parent, in fact. But he still manages to go quicker than anyone else Thomas Jäger's in a hard battle. He's had a poor Sector 1 and a poor Sector 2 as well. So he's got to line up, take a run up at this final lap, because this will, well, he might get one more lap out of it actually as he comes across the line. But time is running out for the Mercedes to make it through into the final segment of qualifying. 12th place for Jäger. Out of the final corner comes Frank Stippler, who's currently in 4th place in the Audi. Currently it's McLaren, Audi. And he remains in 4th. Salaquada still there in 8th place. So as we approach the final laps, we've got the 2 McLarens through, the 2 Audis through, the 2 Lamborghinis through, 1 BMW of Michael Bartels and 1 Ferrari of Philippe Salaquada. Here comes Marcus Winkelhock. He's done a personal best in the middle sector. He's done a fairly poor first sector, a second off the pace. So this isn't going to be enough to get him through into the final segment of qualifying. Basseng watches on as his teammate sticks it into 10th place. This is the last chance for the championship second place men at the moment to get through into the pole position shootout. Basseng looking very frustrated. Dusseldorp has come into the pits now in the number 1 McLaren, so he's happy with the job he's done. So does Alvaro Perez, so the McLarens are in. Good lapping so far from the 2 Lamborghinis in 5th and 6th. On board we go then with Marcus Winkelhock. On the power nice and early. Kicking out wide, down the hill into turn 8. Sector 1 for Winkelhock is a 55.3. It's not good enough. It's not good enough, I don't think. It's 1.1 seconds off the fastest first sector time from the McLarens. And this could be a big moment in the championship, because Michael Bartels and Jelmer Berman are still in contention for that pole position shootout. They're still going to make it through if things stay how they are. And I think things will stay roughly how they are. There's a chance they could get knocked out by Francesco Castellacci, who's the car behind Winkelhock here. Winkelhock's done a decent job in Sector 2. This might just be enough. If Winkelhock can have a great final sector, this might just be enough to move him from 11th up into the top 8. It's going to be close for Winkelhock. Can he get through into the top 10? He goes up into 7th place. 7th place for Marcus Winkelhock. He pulls it back in sectors 2 and 3. And as a result, Castellacci has followed him through and gone quickly. And that means that the 18 car, the championship leading car of Michael Bartels and Jelmer Berman, is out of the top 8 shootout at the moment. Bartels is still out there on circuit. But he's not going to do it because he's well off the pace in the middle sector, a 46.7. And he comes into the pits. Or is that his teammate coming in? Can't quite make it out, but it doesn't matter whichever it is. He is not going to get through into the top 8 shootout. It was Bartels coming in. There you can see dirt in the front of Nicky Mermanov's car because he's had a spin at turn 6. Well, well, well. Here comes Thomas Jäger. What can he do in this final sector? Can he put himself into the top 8 shootout as well? He moves up into 7th place, and he can. He almost pushes out his teammate, but both Mercedes go through into the top 8 shootout in 7th and 8th places at the moment. There's one of the GT3 AF courses, I think, coming out of the final corner. Yes, it is. It's the 151 car of Michael Lyons. Well, what a dramatic middle part of qualifying that was. It looked for all the world as though the second place men in the championship weren't going to make it through to the pole shootout, and the championship leaders were. But then a brilliant second and third sectors from Marcus Winkelhock saved the day really for Al Inkel. And in doing so, they've pushed Michael Bartels and Jelmer Berman, the championship leaders, down to 10th. Wow. Basseng now getting focused because he's going to take part in the pole position shootout. But, well, I don't know what to say. What a roller coaster that was of a qualifying session. Perent quickest, Dusseldorp second quickest. So we've got 2 McLarens, 2 Audis, 2 Lamborghinis, and 2 Mercedes in the top 8. Means losing out are Francesco Castellacci, Michael Bartels. He's going to be frustrated with that. There's no doubts about it. Neither BMW, they weren't expecting to do well. But 10th and 12th has to be worse than they were fearing. And 13th place for the debutant Laurent Groppi. Well, let's hear from Jelmer Berman. He's not going to have the chance to challenge for pole position.
Jelmer, it was close. What happened?
I don't know. Michael is just coming out of the car now, but I mean, it's difficult for us, you know, under these temperatures. We've been doing well in the hot temperatures, but these temperatures like Moscow, it's always very difficult. And, you know, so we'll just have to fight hard. And hopefully it's warmer in Donington anyway.
Why is it difficult to get the temperatures up in the car?
It's just the way the car is, basically. But I mean, sometimes it's advantage, sometimes it isn't, like now. So you know, and then when it's an advantage, you get more BOP, more weight, and then when we come here, it's really difficult. But anyway, I mean, we're going to make the most now of the qualifying race and hopefully have a good position for tomorrow.
Thank you.
So Jelmer Berman hoping for hot conditions next weekend in Donington Park. If you're hoping for hot conditions in Leicestershire in October, then I think you're barking up the wrong tree a little bit, but we'll see. Hopefully next weekend we'll have an Indian summer in Donington Park. So now we move to the top 8 pole position shootout. There's Nicky Mermanov, frustrated with that. And as far as GT3 goes, their grid for tomorrow, we'll see Dominic Baumann start in pole position. So that 101 Heiko Gravity Charoux machine, the quickest in that GT3 qualifying session as well. So it's looking for all the world as though they will clinch the title this week. Here's a look at the qualification results then. The top 8 going through to the pole position shootout. De Moustier and Perent the quickest. Dusseldorp second quickest. It was the second drivers that took that qualifying session. Perent, Dusseldorp, Ortelli, Stippler, Rossina. Good to see the 2 Lamborghinis looking quick. Your own Bleekemolen doing a good job on his debut. Thomas Jaeger and Marcus Winkelhock coming through at the final hour. Look at that. Winkelhock through to the top 8 shootout by just 0.02 of a second. Eden Castellacci out. They will start 9th on the grid. Berman and Bartels will start 10th on the grid. Verlander and Salaquada. In all that, I forgot to mention that Salaquada had been bumped down to 11th. That's going to be frustrating for them because we were expecting the Ferraris to be strong here. And then in 13th place on the grid will start Laurent Groppi, debutant this weekend here at the Nürburgring. So, well, the Ferraris missing out on that top 8 shootout is a real disappointment for them, I have no doubt, because Tony Verlander was the quickest man in the first qualifying session. So Steph Dusseldorp had a good session. The McLaren's looking very, very strong this weekend. He's with Haley Coxham.
Steph, it certainly looks like the McLarens are on it here this weekend.
For now it's looking good, but you never know. If you see the clouds above it, maybe there will be some rain. For now it's good. I hope Fred can do a good lap as well and qualifying in front. And yeah, we have to attack this weekend because we need to score the points and close the gap. And yeah, we do our very best, and we'll see what happens in today and tomorrow in the championship race.
Thank you.
So good work from Steph. I was disappointed that he hasn't brought his hat from Moscow here. Very fetching piece of Russian memorabilia he had at the Moscow Raceway. But it's certainly the right temperature for it here, but he's decided to leave it at home. Clearly there you can see the Hexis guests in the pit lane, and there you can see the sun coming out. The track temperature is really up and down. We're back down to 11.7 degrees now. At the start of the last session we were at 20, and now we're back down to 11. It really is a difficult weekend for the drivers and the teams, and that may suggest why the pace went from the Mercedes towards the end, because the start of the session, when it was about 19, 20 degrees, they were looking all right. They were keeping pace with some of their rivals. Then they dropped away towards the middle and latter stages of the session. Yep, not that warm, is it, dear? There's the roller coaster, and well, that second segment of qualifying was a bit of a roller coaster. What is this final segment of qualifying going to bring us? Because with 10 minutes to go, Marc Basseng is headed out onto the circuit. Will it bring us rain? That's the question those big black clouds are asking. But let's hope not. Marc Basseng out onto the circuit. So is Fred Makovicky, Lawrence Vanthor, Oliver Jarvis and Nicky Pastorelli. So Marcus Winkelhock saving the day for Al Inkel, getting his car through into the top 80s with Haley.
Marco, can I ask you, will you put the BMWs out?
They are out?
No. Will you put the BMWs out in the race?
To be honest, I don't know. Now, I hope that Mark can do a good lap in Q3. For us, it's important to stay as much in front as possible, and yeah, then we will see. But it's really not easy. The problem is there's no peak in the tire. I did like five laps constantly. My last lap was the quickest, so and we cannot squeeze the tire out in this temperatures. So it's really not easy.
It's certainly going to be an interesting battle for the two German brands.
Sorry?
Certainly going to be an interesting battle for the two German brands.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be really tight.
Thank you.
So Marcus watching on the pit wall, checking out his rivals, and well, really mainly focusing on Marc Basseng's progress, because as you say, 5 laps in the final lap, one was the quickest. Normally you get the best out of your tyres in the first couple of laps. So busy pit lane, busy circuit for these 8 minutes, because with lap times at about 2 minutes, it means you're not going to have many opportunities to get in the hot laps. Basseng, oh, big jump up through the chicane there. There's a real bump as you come through that chicane, and Marc Basseng found it perfectly, didn't he, as he exits the final corner. Across the line he comes to begin his lap. He's got Oliver Jarvis up behind him. Jarvis weaving a little bit to try and heat his tyres as well. But in the battle for the championship, well, I mean, the qualifying race later on today, a lot can change in that, but it shows that the pace of the Mercedes and the BMW isn't quite there, and if anything's going to happen this weekend, and you couldn't really have asked for it to happen any better, I think we're going to have Dusseldorp and Makovicky have the strongest weekend out of these three, and we're going to go to Donington Park with 3 driver pairings separated by 5 points at the most, or something like that. That's my kind of hope as well. So Basseng out of the first sector, and it was the first sector really where the Mercedes were the weakest. He was 1.2 seconds down in sector 1, was Marcus Winkelhock on that last lap, got it back to 1 second, then got it back to 9/10 of a second. So sectors 2 and 3 don't seem to hurt the Mercedes quite as much as the run down to sector 1 does, which is an interesting one. Through the left-hander they come. The first sector, I suppose, relies more on getting heat into the tyres, especially through turns 1 to 4. The rest of the middle sector is more about getting the long corner speed. Oh, the car bottoming out there, you can see, kicking up a few sparks. Basseng really throwing it into that final corner. So we're surely looking at a 55 for pole position, possibly, if Fred Makovicky's on it or Peter Cox is on it, a 54. Across the line goes a 58.242 for Marc Basseng. Oliver Jarvis does a 2:01, Makovic does a 1:59.5, so those were just the sighting laps. Now the real business will commence. There's the WRT team. Philippe Dudonné, you could just see there in the background. There is Oliver Jarvis. He's backed off to give himself some space. Will he be a dark horse for pole position? Because my bet was Tony Verlander. Oh, Jarvis getting it wrong. He's not going to take pole position with moments like that. My bet was Tony Verlander for pole position, but he has been eliminated in that second segment of qualifying after Philippe Salaquada couldn't coax the number 3 Ferrari through. So despite that moment, it's a 55.6 in Sector 1 for Oliver Jarvis, but Makovic's done a 55.1, Basseng's done a 55.4. So it's not going to be a great lap, this one, for Oliver Jarvis. Former British F3 racer. He's had a good season so far. Him and Frank Stippler, a very strong driver pairing, but for whatever reason, things haven't quite worked out for them. Lawrence Vanthoor actually could be one to watch for pole position as well. He was very quick in the first segment of qualifying. You really see the BMW bottoming out there. So it's purple in Sector 1 for Fred Makovic, purple in Sector 2 for Fred Makovic as well. This is going to bring him into the 56s definitely. May be able to sneak into the 55s at this early stage of the session. Across the line he comes. There's a 50, well, he just squeezed into the 55s, didn't he? 55.998. I say early stage of the session, we've only got 3.5 minutes to go, but these guys have only just completed 3 laps. That was their first real hot lap, but they're only going to get the chance to do 2 more, really. So it's going to be a real challenge for these guys. There goes Lawrence Vanthoor then, quickest man of anyone on that last lap, 55.982. And there he is, coming through turn 3. Then out through 4 in the Audi. He's had some very strong performances this season as Lawrence Vanthoor. Some really impressive drives. After an impressive single-seater career, which saw him finish second at the Macau Grand Prix a few years ago in Formula 3. Now he's going to come through the sector split and do a 55.2. That's a good first sector time. It's almost 3/10 quicker than he has gone previously, but Fred Makovic has just done a 54.5, which is 0.7 of a second quicker than that. Fred Makovic absolutely on it in the first sector. Marc Bassin currently 5th. But it's going to be Audi versus McLaren by the looks of things for pole position. Makovic goes purple in sector 2 as well, 42.166. Is Fred Makovic going to be the first man to dip into the 54s, or will it just be a low 55? Whatever happens, this could be the pole position lap by the time the end of the session comes. Across the line he comes to 55.024 for Fred Makovic. Very strong lap from the young Frenchman. Across the line comes Vanthoor to remain in 3rd place with a 55.803. Bassin comes across the line to do a 56.6, which leaves him in 5th place, a place behind his teammate. So Mercedes in 4th and 5th at the moment. Peter Cox hasn't really shown his true pace yet. We're watching Mike Parisi, who's done a 55.3 in the first sector. Peter Cox shows his true pace now and jumps up into 4th place. Here comes Parisi, born and raised in Pau. Scene of the famous French race, and he's coming out onto the back straight now. Lights ablaze for Parisi. What kind of middle sector can he do? If he does something in the region of a 42. It'll be a very good middle sector indeed. It's a 42.5. This could move him into the top 4 if he can hook up the final corner. On the power nice and early. Keeps the car stable on the exit. Across the line comes Mike Parisi. What can he do with this one? It's up into 4th place. Displaces his teammate Peter Cox. That's an impressive lap time actually from Mike Parisi in his first weekend in the Lamborghini to outpace Peter Cox. Very impressive, but Cox is still out there. So is 33, Oliver Jarvis. He's up in 2nd place, but he comes into the pits. Fred Makovic went quickest of anyone in the first sector. His middle sector was poor though, so I don't think this is going to be the 54 that we're all hoping for. 55.1. But that's still, I think, going to be good enough for pole position for the Hexis Racing team. Vanthor comes across the line, jumps up into 2nd place. Only 0.3 of a second off Fred Makovic. But it's not going to be enough because the checkered flag is out. Fred Makovic is safe unless Peter Cox can do something magical in this final sector. This could be enough to put Cox back up into... Jaeger's put a good lap in. Thomas Jaeger's ended up in 4th place at the moment. Here comes Peter Cox. What can he do? 5th on the grid for Peter Cox. So he gets back ahead of his teammate Mike Parisi. But it's Fred Makovic for Hexis Racing and the McLaren MP412C that takes pole position here at the Nürburgring for the qualifying race this afternoon. Laurens Vanthor will start the race in 2nd place. Parisi's still out there actually. So we've still got Mike Parisi out on circuit with a decent Sector 1, a 10th of his teammate. He's a 10th of his teammate in Sector 2 as well. So this isn't going to be enough for Parisi. Unless he can find 3/10 in the final sector, then it's going to be quite impressive. Across the line he comes, and he remains in 6th place as expected. And there you can see the Hexis team delighted with another pole position. Steph Dusseldorf will start the qualifying race in that car, in the number 1 Hexis McLaren that won the last race in Moscow, and they will start on pole. Mark Basseng will start in 8th, and Yama Berman will start in 10th. So a real great opportunity for Hexis Racing. Steph Dusseldorf and Fred Makovic, a great position for them in the championship.
Congratulations, a great start for the team and a great start for you guys.
Yeah, it's fantastic to start on pole again. We work hard and position is the best we could do, and hope we can keep this up for the rest of the weekend and score as many points as possible. But it's looking good.
Thank you, Steph.
It's looking very, very good for Hexis because, as I say, they start on pole. Their main championship rivals starting in 8th and 10th place. Basseng and Winkelhock in 8th, Berman and Bartels in 10th. What an up and down season this has been, and it's getting even more and more up and down now. Here's a look at the grid, the top 8. McLaren on pole, the 2 Audis back in the hunt, 2nd and 3rd place. I think they'll be pleased with that performance. The Audis beating their German rivals of Mercedes and BMW fairly comprehensively. Makovic and Dusseldorf. Vanthor and Ortelli will start 2nd on the grid, with Jarvis and Strickler just behind. Then the first of the Mercedes-Benzes, great lap from Thomas Jaeger. He ends the session some, 0.8 of a second quicker than his teammate Mark Basseng. I think Basseng and Winkelhock will have a little bit of frustration there. Peter Cox in 5th place, one of the best qualifying performances so far this season for the Reiter Engineering Lamborghini, with Parisi and Bleekemolen in 6th position. Gregoire de Moustier qualifying in 7th, ahead of Mark Basseng, 8th position. That is how the top 8 will line this afternoon. So there is the run down into turn 8, where hopefully we will see some overtaking. There you can see the qualifying positions for the 2nd race of the weekend, which will be tomorrow for FIA GT3. Unsurprisingly, Buch and Baumann taking pole position just ahead of Gaetano Ardagna Perez and Giuseppe Ciro, with Jerome Demey and Dino Lunardi. Good job from Lunardi to end up in 3rd place. So we've got the qualifying race coming up later on today as this GT1 World Championship nears its climax. Things are looking very, very interesting. You can join us for the qualifying race later on today. We hope you will, because it's set to be a fantastic battle between the brands. We've got McLaren at the front, Audi behind, with BMW and Mercedes battling for the championship. So we'll see you later on for the qualifying race. Thanks for joining us.